You ever wonder what Formula One isn't showing you? Behind the glitz, the podiums, and Sky Sports' polished coverage, there's corruption, cheating, and cover-ups they hope you'll never question. Well, buckle up, because today we're diving straight into the scandals too dark for their broadcast, and nothing proves it better than Abu Dhabi 2021. You remember that race, right? The one where Michael Masi casually tossed the rulebook out the window and handed the championship to Max Verstappen on a silver platter. One lap, 5 unlapped cars magically removed. And just like that, Lewis Hamilton's 8th title vanished. Not because he lost it, but because someone decided he wouldn't win it. And let's be honest, this wasn't just human error. This was a moment manufactured for maximum drama. F1 didn't want a boring finish under a safety car. They wanted fireworks, headlines, a Netflix-worthy twist. And the FIA gave it to them. But here's the real kicker. Sky Sports, after a brief explosion of outrage, slowly backed away. They didn't press the issue. They cut to credits like it was just another plot twist. Because questioning the integrity of a title fight, that's bad for business. So instead of asking the hard questions, the cameras moved on, but the damage didn't, and the sport's credibility still hasn't recovered. But that was just the beginning. Because once the dust settled in Abu Dhabi, the FIA didn't try to earn back trust. They rewrote the rulebook again. Only this time, it wasn't about the race. It was about shutting people up. In 2024, the FIA quietly introduced a new misconduct clause designed to punish anyone who speaks out. Drivers, team principals, you name it. Suddenly, criticizing officials wasn't passion. It was a violation. And just like that, voicing frustration became a finable offense. Think about that. In a sport built on pushing limits, the one thing they're now trying to control is speech. And what did Sky Sports do while this was happening? Nothing, just a polished broadcast pretending everything was fine. Here's the truth. The FIA doesn't want accountability. It wants obedience. And broadcasters like Sky, they've become part of that system. They amplify the drama when it's marketable, but when the power play gets too obvious, they go quiet. Because in modern Formula One, saying too much is more dangerous than driving 300 kilometers an hour. And while they were busy silencing voices, they were also ignoring the ones already breaking. Because what Sky Sports never tells you is just how brutal Formula One can be. Not on the track, but in the mind. Lewis Hamilton admitted he battled depression from the age of 13. Nicholas Latifi needed therapy after receiving death threats for a crash that wasn't even his fault. And it's not just personal stories, it's medical fact. A recent study flagged F1 drivers as high risk for psychological breakdowns due to extreme heat exposure, weight restrictions, harassment, and constant travel. Sebastian Vettel, before walking away from the sport, said loud and clear, F1 doesn't take mental health seriously. And let's be real, why would it? This is a sport that worships pressure, glorifies burnout, and treats emotional breakdowns like PR liabilities. It's all performance. Win on track, smile off it, and suffer in silence. But where was Sky Sports when drivers were crying for help between the lines? Nowhere in sight. They'll show you heart rate monitors and team radios, but not the reality of a paddock that chews up young talent and spits them out emotionally drained. Because that kind of honesty doesn't sell airtime. And here's the irony, Sky's own presenters aren't even safe. Rachel Brooks had to shut off her social media comments after waves of fan abuse. But the network never addressed the bigger issue, the toxic culture that brews when silence is the status quo. And that's the darkest part. When a sport this fast, this rich, and this global still refuses to slow down long enough to protect its own drivers from collapsing under the weight of it all. And if the mental pressure wasn't enough, try following the money, because what's stuck to the side of those F1 cars is often far filthier than tire rubber. Let's talk about sponsorship, the part Sky Sports will never question, because those logos pay for their airtime. But some of the biggest names slapped on F1 cars have no business being there. Remember Rich Energy? A mysterious company with barely £500 in the bank suddenly became Haas's title sponsor. Their CEO claimed to be taking on Red Bull and then disappeared into a legal mess and a storm of bizarre tweets. It was a walking scam, and F1 gave it front row seats. Then there's Mission Winnow, a fancy name hiding something far more familiar: Philip Morris, the makers of Marlboro, using Ferrari's livery to sneak tobacco branding back into the sport. They weren't selling products, they were selling influence. And no one blinked. Why? Because the money was too good to question. And let's not forget the crypto invasion. Sketchy crypto firms, many of which have since collapsed or been sued, were all over F1 liveries in 2022 and 2023. So, where was SkySports through all this? Celebrating sponsorship deals like they were team victories. No coverage of the legal chaos. Just glowing segments about partnership growth, while the sport's integrity was being sold off panel by panel. Because in Formula One, the only thing faster than the cars is how quickly they'll look the other way if the money's right. And just when you thought it couldn't get messier, in came the Christian Horner fallout. A scandal that should have shaken the sport, but somehow didn't. This was the team principal of Red Bull, accused of serious misconduct, with leaked messages, internal investigations, and growing pressure from within the organization itself. And yet, Sky Sports barely touched it. Just a few vague lines about internal matters, and then silence, like the whole thing was just a minor HR hiccup. Honestly, if this had been anyone else at any other team, it would have been chaos. But because it was Red Bull's golden man, everyone tiptoed around it. They wrapped it in PR jargon and moved on. And Sky didn't push, didn't probe, didn't even pretend to investigate. Why? Because when the scandal threatens the power structure, the media doesn't ask questions. It protects the brand. And in this case, the brand was more important than the truth. All right, let's talk about one of F1's favorite buzzwords: diversity. The sport loves to throw it around, plaster it on banners, and toss it into every promo video like confetti. But when it comes to actual progress for women, it's all smoke and mirrors. W Series, collapsed. F1 Academy, hidden away like a side project no one's allowed to talk about. And if a woman does make it into the paddock, she's treated like a novelty, something to pose with, not invest in. Sky Sports will show up when there's a photo op or a feel-good headline. They'll cheer when a female driver tests a car, but never ask why she doesn't have a full-time seat. They don't question the barriers. They don't question the silence. Because highlighting real inequality would mean admitting the sport still isn't built for women. It's just decorated with them. Let's call it what it is: tokenism, wrapped in PR glitter. F1 wants credit for being inclusive without doing the actual work. And when broadcasters don't press for answers, they're not covering progress, they're covering it up. And if you think Sky's silence is just passive, think again. Back in 2012, they actually pulled a story ahead of the Australian Grand Prix, just to keep a team happy. That's not reporting, that's editorial obedience. So, when scandals break, it's no surprise they stay buried. And if you think the scandals in F1 are new, oh, you've got some history to catch up on. Let's rewind to the days when cheating wasn't just suspected, it was executed, caught, and somehow still swept under the rug. First up, Spygate, 2007. McLaren got their hands on over 700 pages of Ferrari's technical secrets, literal blueprints, and used them to compete. The result? A $100 million fine and total expulsion from the Constructors' Championship. Massive, right? But here's the part no one likes to talk about. They still kept racing. The car stayed on the grid. The drivers kept scoring points. Business as usual. Then Crashgate, 2008. Renault straight up instructed Nelson Piquet Jr. to crash on purpose at the Singapore Grand Prix so teammate Fernando Alonso could win. It wasn't an accident. It was strategy, engineered chaos. People were banned, yes. But years later, they're back, some even holding senior roles in the sport again. And what did Sky Sports do with all this? They turned it into dramatic flashbacks, trivia segments, and completely stripping away the actual weight of what happened. These weren't quirky footnotes in F1 history. They were cold-blooded examples of how far teams will go to win, and how quickly the sport is willing to move on when things get uncomfortable. These weren't just scandals, they were full-scale manipulations of competition. But in F1, if you've got the right badge and the right lawyers, history gets rewritten as entertainment. And just when you think Formula One couldn't get more selective about its principles, let's talk about activism. Because this sport loves a slogan. "We Racers Won" looks great on a banner, sounds powerful in a promo, and fits perfectly in a press release. But when drivers actually try to speak up, suddenly the message gets inconvenient. Lewis Hamilton wore a Justice for Breonna Taylor shirt. Sebastian Vettel sported rainbow flags and spoke out on climate. Both were warned. The FIA tightened its rules, banning political statements unless pre-approved. Pre-approved. Think about that. Your voice is only valid if it fits the brand. And where was Sky Sports in all this? Right in line. They echoed the official line, skipped the deeper conversations, and quietly stopped showing those moments altogether. Because that's the reality. F1 is fine with change, as long as it doesn't upset sponsors, shake authority, or make anyone too uncomfortable. The second it does, the messaging gets muted, the visibility disappears, and the cameras conveniently look the other way. This isn't just about scandals, it's about the stories that never make the broadcast. The decisions that shape races, silence voices, and protect power, all kept neatly off screen. Because in Formula One, the darkest truths don't happen off track, they just get edited out. If these are the stories they refuse to air, what else have they erased from the spotlight? Hit that subscribe button because we're not done exposing the truth.